Sweet. Welcome, everybody. Breaking Brains, Building Hearts. We're live on Facebook today. Big timing.
Hey,
Upgrading every week.
We're such big trend people that right when Facebook's facing its worst moments ever, we're now going to
we finally figure out how to go live on Facebook.
Yeah.
You're never too late, baby. You're never too late.
Oh, too funny.
Maybe sometimes you are, but we'll tell ourselves you're never too late.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's good to be back with you guys. For those who don't know, Chris McAllister, James Rories, Brett Burchard, here trying to break your brains, build your hearts for another awesome week. And we've been going through a series of mindsets that are highlighted in our book, Catching Confetti. Chris, always the one to bring it to the forefront. Book we wrote specifically for athletes and coaches, but has also found help for business folks as well in developing the mindset of a champion. We've worked through 6 of the 7 mindsets. We're on the 7th mindset now, which would be the empathetic mindset. And this one's interesting for me because when we wrote the book, empathetic mindset we kind of took one direction with it. And then when we made the toolkit, the online training toolkit, I kind of took it in a different direction. And now as I'm working with a team, have taken it into a third direction. And so I'd like to share what I've been doing with athletes and coaches for the empathetic mindset. And then Chris would like to hear just kind of where empathetic mindset lands with you. And then Jimmy, as kind of a guy who doesn't have as much exposure to these mindsets as we've defined them, would like to hear how it lands for you kind of in your world. Maybe we'll start just Chris, where does it land for you as far as the empathetic mindset is concerned?
Yeah. I would love to hear too where you changed or where you like broadened it out. And I'm so on the edge of my seat for that. Apologies, I just banged my table. So when I get excited, I do those things. Jimmy had to help remind me recently because I was like, rah, 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 like Dwight on The Office when he's doing that speech. No. The simplest thing, and this will be super brief because I really am excited to hear about what you were referencing there. When you're secure in yourself, when you know who you are, and you're not consciously trying to read the signals of others, are they approving of me? Do they like me? Where do I fit in? Am I going to be taken care of? You know, the way that we talk about this at the identity fear level, you don't even consciously know that's in your brain. But when that's calm, you really can see, feel, and hear the other. And so an empathetic mindset just means that I'm not here for just what I can get out of this. I'm here to give something to it. And in the empathy of that, I'm not seeing them how I want to see them. I'm seeing them for who they are, and I'm coming beside them in that way. And I want to be seen the same way. I don't want people to tell me how to see the world. I want them to help me see the world as I was meant to see it. And so it's an exchange back and forth where we are doing that for one another.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. Like most of the work we've done has been on like the individual journey, which, we say up front, like a healthy we is made up of healthy me's. And so like finding the individual get to a healthy place, the individual leader or competitor or performer, you get to a really healthy place. And then bringing that secure version of who you are, that best version of you are, into the group. And that's where it comes together in the empathetic mindset. Like, how does all that work you've done on yourself translate into your relationships and the people you're leading or the people you're just in partnership with, the people you interact with. And the thing it's happened now when I work with teams, especially team sports, basketballs, footballs, soccers, those, the team sports especially it's such an interesting dynamic because you're putting this team together to compete with an opponent, another team. But there's also competition within the team. Like you're sparring against each other every day in practice. and then you're fighting for playing time or roles or positions within the group. And of course, like the idea is come together and we sacrifice for the team because our team is going to compete with the other team. But there's also competition within the team. Like, this guy's got, I'm trying to be a starter and this guy's coming from my spot, or I'm trying to be a leading scorer and this guy's trying to take the mantle. And there's competition within the group. And so the message we really try to get across to these teams is the people within your locker room are not your competition. That competition within each other will make you stronger and sharpen you and get you better. And so you need to compete with each other in a sense to improve. But the real competition is outside the locker room. So we're gonna spar with each other, knock up against each other, expose each other's weaknesses in the safety of our locker room. So then when we reach the real competition, all that stuff has been like taken care of. We found ways to fill those gaps and those holes and shore up those weaknesses. So an interesting way of, how we've taken the empathetic mindset into, okay, if you bring your full healthy version to the group and my teammate does the same, and then we use that, like, against, not against each other, but we spar with each other in that to now take our collective best self out into the rest of the competition. Does that make sense, what I just described or explained?
Yeah.
I love
It's
it.
kind of like when I bust my kids' chops. I'm not trying to bust their chops. I'm trying to make them stronger. I'm trying to thicken their skin. I'm doing it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I thought about that in the parenting context because you could do it unhealthy or healthy. But I also thought about it in corporate America, where there are people that are toxic leaders that are gunning for your jobs and trying to displace you. But I also thought about it for us because, like, no one challenges me to be at my best other than knowing I'm going to show up and stare you guys in the eye. And in our meeting, am I doing my best? And there are times where I can feel a false pressure or insecurity from that, like I'm not taking us farther, faster enough, blah, blah, blah. But if I can relax past that, it is the internal competition of each of us running in the brilliance of our strengths, that nobody pushes me more than what I want to be for you guys in a healthy way. And that's just, that's something that's been new for me this last half a year. We've been meeting longer than that, but that emotion has really showed up in a powerful way. And yeah, I'm tracking.
How about you, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, empathy it's a huge word right now because of we're exposing a lot of the transactional leaders and transactional practices that businesses take when dealing with human beings, with their employees, right? We see the great migration of people out of their jobs because they're recognizing the transactional nature and what they really don't mean to their boss and what they don't mean to their employer. And that is the direct result of a lack of empathy by businesses and leaders to really look at and understand the world from their employees' perspectives. Why are they here, right? Do we really value them, or is it lip service? And as Chris, we were reading a McKinsey article, that really declared that organizations that don't sincerely look at their employees, understand their employees, will fail. They will not succeed through this next year or more of this migration of employees. But that resonates with me also because when we think about leadership and practicing sales as a leadership competency, we are pursuing a shared goal, and we're serving a shared goal, and we're leading someone down a shared path to change. Everything that we do in sales and everything we do in leadership, ideally, is about the shared experience, right? If you're going to be a growth multiplier in the context of a sales environment or a growth environment, it has to be a shared experience, and you can't get there without empathy. And you can't develop the empathy without walking that path yourself. So I think to your point, Brett, something that resonated with me is a phrase that we use all the time, is that you can't walk someone down a path you're unwilling to walk yourself. And if growth is the mastery of change, then if I'm not pursuing change in myself, how can I walk someone else down that path to change? If people buy when they're ready, willing, and able to change, how can I move them, right, to buy or buy into my idea, unless I've already walked down that path and I've experienced what it's like to be afraid of change, or be nervous by change, or have the stress or pressure that's caused by change. If I haven't experienced it, how can I look for it or seek it or understand it in others that I'm dealing with? And so, I think everything you said resonates, and it can be applied across business as well as Chris mentioned, everyday life.
Chris, you were writing, did something stick out to you there, that, or was that your to-do list for tonight?
It's getting longer.
Things not to say on my date with Brandy. Yeah, we're super inspired here, because probably one of, this is so weird, this insight hit me while Jimmy was expressing, probably one of the most like commented on emails I've ever sent, which for me, is a high number of people. It was this thing where I made fun of how to know if your boss is kind of toxic by the way they do a holiday party. And the idea is like the words they use and the things they do, where they try to make up for all the bad treatment. And it's the same thing with like burritos, right? We do burritos every Friday so we can ruin your life. There's a meme right now where there's this person drowning, and of course it just says employees that are suffering, and the manager reaches out with a hand and high fives them, and that's all it is, and it just says pizza party. And so just capturing some inspiration around that.
Yeah.
Because it's everything that I think, as we think about the individual person who we want to help with Site Shift, we want to help them know who they are, an identity apart from a work identity. We want them to not have to spend their whole lives trying to figure that out, or have to travel everywhere. We want to help them know who they are. And when it comes to businesses, what does it mean to create environments where people can figure that out, so that they've got healthy, growth-based cultures? And it's not from, all the things that people have told you it is. And yeah, so just getting fired up.
Yeah.
It's interesting, if I may, Brett,
please.
it's just interesting also to kind of observe, growing up, this kind of a conversation would have been referred to as a soft conversation, right? Culture, empathy, leadership, those are the things that are nice to have. Whereas, back in the day, it was just work hard, right? Who gives a shit? I mean, it was innovative to say, to add to that context, this idea of being smart and working hard. But today, what we're finding out is that, people are recognizing it because they're experiencing it every day. It's the soft stuff that makes work worthwhile. It's the soft stuff that motivates us. It's the soft stuff that gets us up in the morning. It's the soft stuff that doesn't allow us to call in sick. It's the soft stuff that convinces us it's a good idea to bring our cell phone on vacation, not because we're going to get our asses kicked or chewed out, but because we want to be we're committed to the mission, the vision of the organization, and we're willing to put the extra time in because it motivates us. It means something to us. It aligns with our sense of purpose. It's something we want to do. It speaks directly to this idea that we're not motivating people through manipulation, carrot stick. We are motivating people through connecting with them, putting them in the right place, in the right role, the role that suits their natural work style, positioning them so that they can develop their motivation, develop their mastery as part of our organization. And if we can give them that, then why the hell would they go anywhere else?
Yeah. The digital allows such an abundance that how we get there matters, because we are going to get there. I mean,
Right.
for most organizations, if you've got a decent level of intelligence, and not all spaces are like this, but especially a lot of digital spaces. You think it definitely with sports teams, there's no, the soccer team isn't having to go out and figure out how to, win the month's income. They have a very focused place they need to perform, and they know that, and they're zeroed in. So it's the culture around that that helps that performance be not only better, as Jimmy was saying, but it makes it fun. It's like life's
Right.
too short. And I think Ted Lasso has brought that out in a big way. Yeah, I can only imagine all the insight you'd have to give us on Ted Lasso, Brett, and the empathetic mindset.
He is definitely the poster child for it right now. The one thing that's sticking out to me, and both of you have touched on this in different ways, is the distinction of empathy, and maybe in contrast to sympathy. And like coming with empathy is action. It's not just, oh, I feel bad for you, what Chris, what the meme you referenced, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I feel bad for you. Here's a pizza party. Like,
Yeah.
Or it's not just, figure out the pain point, as you talk about, Jimmy, and where they're at and where they're struggling, and just leave them there. But empathy is like, okay, now let's come alongside you and give you action to move forward. How can you, what's the next step you can take? How can you improve from here? What's that shared path we can walk together? Because I know you and understand you and see you, and can meet you there. And I think that's maybe where it gets lost a little bit, where we talk about, most people just rely on sympathy, like, oh, I feel bad. And, we talk about this on the sports teams, like, you can go sit on the end of the bench and pout because of whatever happened in the game. But it'd be a disservice to just leave you there at the end of the bench, drowning in a pool of your own sympathy. Like, the empathetic mindset, I'm going to go sit on the end of the bench with you, and then give you back into the game. Like, okay, I understand this is where you're at. It's not okay to stay here. So let's keep moving. Let's find a way to move forward. Which I think is the super, super powerful part of the empathetic mindset. As we've concluded most of our episodes, if you took that in mind, like, okay, here's where I can meet you and help you move forward, what would be a takeaway for people to start living with more empathy? Or if you think they need some empathy from us right now, what would you share?
You want to go first, Jimmy?
I'll do it. I'll give you the last word, Chris, because it'll be profound. and maybe people will stop watching after they hear from me, because it'll be enough.
The numbers just started dropping on Facebook Live.
What you brought up for me, when I heard you talk about sympathy, I immediately remember the last time I heard that rote automatic response, right? That was really insincere, right? So it's like, it's harkens back to this idea that we talk about, where, somebody asks you how you are, and you give them the, I'm great, how you doing? Like, you give them the thoughtless response. Sympathy can be thoughtless that way as well. You see someone in pain, you give them what you think is the socially acceptable, gee whiz, I hope you're well. You make the small talk, but there isn't a lot of sincerity behind it. It's a rote or a reaction, or it's done just so that you won't look like a jerk. Same thing with empathy, man. I mean, if it's not coming from a sincere place, then it's going to fall flat. And I think back in the 90s, right, during the internet bubble, when we first started seeing, foosball tables and ping pong tables in workspaces, when we had like jars of M&Ms, right? Originally, that was done to reward folks. There was a sincerity behind that. It was also done to keep people at their desks so they would work more. But it was originated with a sincerity that was then trivialized over time to the point where today, because so many large organizations have those kinds of rooms and have those spiffs, they don't mean anything because they don't support a sincere interest in understanding who the employee is and serving the employee what they need to achieve the objectives they have during the day, et cetera. So it's that sincerity that has to come along with the empathy that's important. It's not just a transaction. It's not just a rote behavior.
I love it. Yeah, you were taking me back to companies we've done stuff with over the years, and when they have that atmosphere and they're not trying to trivialize it and it's real and authentic, it's beautiful. And when it is, you can just feel it and smell it. I think first I would say empathy is not a failure of leadership. So a lot of people we've worked with, you know, I'm leading if I solve it. I'm leading if I fix it. Empathy is oftentimes all that's needed. Then the person can go on their own to solve it. We want to be the leader and help solve it for them if we need to sometimes, but I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I'm sorry that sucks. You know, these expressions of connection. I think secondly, empathy can't be demanded. Every human being is fighting a hard battle. Every human being is facing a struggle. So anybody watching this, you have things about your story where you feel misunderstood or unknown or isn't appreciated that make you feel lonely or hurt. All of us have those things. And we have them in varying degrees. For sure, there are some people that are suffocating under the struggles of life. But in that, you still can't demand empathy. You have to go out and make transformation in your world and impact others more than you can demand empathy. And I think third, empathy really hasn't like finished its work. And a lot of the applications we talked about today are great because they're the starting point of empathy. And not that every situation of empathy has this, but empathy really hasn't finished its work unless I've been changed by it. I saw my story through my lens. Now I see your story through your lens. And I see more of your perspective and I'm changed by it. I'm made bigger by that story. It didn't fit in how I viewed the world before. It was a part of a judgment categorization or whatever that I've held on to that I didn't even know was there. But now I want to surrender it because I want to be changed. So for me, I think it's fitting that it's the cream on the top of the mindsets. And you got to have all this work beforehand to do it right.
It's awesome. I can't add anything better than what you two all just concluded with. So that'll bring us to the end of another episode. And empathy is the cream on the top, but now the bow that wraps it all together. Next week, we talk about relaxed intensity, my favorite of the whole conversation. So looking forward to that one with you guys and whoever else wants to join us.